Alright, so before I give you the equation, I want us to be able to mentally, because it is important that we mentally understand what's going on, and we have an idea, a conceptual understanding of what's going on. So, oftentimes we want to know what's going to happen infinitely into the future. So if we let n go to infinity, what's going to happen with our series? So let's run through some scenarios where we just keep going and going and going. What is infinity before we start?
Never ending.
Never ending. Pick the biggest number you can ever think of. Add 1 to it. Add 1 to that. Add 1 to that. You get the point. You can always get a bigger number.
Every number is closer to 0 than infinity.
Correct. Harry is correct. That's a weird thought, but that's correct. Whatever number you're thinking of is closer to 0 than infinity. I like that, Harry. Alright. Now, mentally I want to run through some scenarios. So as we go towards infinity, what happens if r is greater than 1? What happens is, let's go through t1's positive. Let's just leave t1 as positive. If r is bigger than 1, what's our number going to keep doing? It's going to keep getting bigger, isn't it? It's going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So the sum is going to tend towards, the sum of n is going to tend towards infinity, which is no good to us. So it's just important to know that if r is greater than 1, does this give us any value? Nothing beyond saying it's just going to get really, really big. Or if t1 was negative, it's going to get really, really negative. Yep. In this scenario, what's going to happen? Now we dealt with a negative scenario before. Is it going to do old Ryan's dance move, or is it going to do something different?
Something different.
It's going to do Harry's dance move. Okay? So, rather than doing Ryan's kick up, it's going to do the wave. But as we get further and further away, what's going to happen is it's going to get towards a nice, neat number. It's going to keep diverging, correct? So this, it doesn't go towards infinity. I'm just going to write Sn keeps diverging. Now what happens if r is less than 1 but greater than 0? So let's go through a number of a half, right? I can give you a real example of what happens with a half. Abby, you are allowed to leave this room. The only way you're allowed to leave, but, is if you can reach the door, like exit the door. Now the only constraint is that you can only walk half the distance between you and the door at any point in time. She'll never make it, will she? She'll be stuck in maths purgatory forever. Why would she never make it? What's going to happen the first term, she's going to get halfway to the door, correct?
Yeah.
In the second term, she's going to get 3/4 of the way to the door. The third term, it's like 88% of the door. She's going to keep getting closer and closer and closer. After 1,000,000 terms, she's going to be moving less than 1 mil because she's not going to be getting any closer to the door. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it doesn't diverge. It gets towards a point where it's so close to 0 we can just ignore it. Does that make sense? So this has a value. What about if it's negative? What's going to happen? Abby's going to walk forward, then she's going to walk backwards, walk forward again, then she's going to walk backwards, walk forward. Is she going to finish it around a point? What's going to happen to the distance she's walking? It's going to, well, initially she'll walk half the way to the door, then she's got to walk back 1/4, then she's got to walk forward 12.5%, and you keep getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Eventually she's going to be stuck on a spot, moving forward and backwards a minuscule amount, correct? That spot, that's the summation. That's a sort of visual representation of what's going on. Does that make sense? So we get Sn has another value. So we have an equation, but when does it apply? Does it apply for r greater than 1?
No.
Does it apply for r less than -1?
No.
The only time our equation applies is when r is between 1 and -1. And I'm going to write that equation up now. It is in your formula sheet. Okay, and I'll write it exactly as it appears. Sn, you'll need this for question 7. Sn equals S not N. What should I write not N? What should I write S? S infinity equals T1 divided by 1 minus R given, and I'm going to write this. Does anyone know what that means?
Yes.
The magnitude of R is less than 1, which in other words just means R is between negative 1 and 1. It appears like this in your formula sheet. Cool? Make sure you get that down.